Why did the Senate reject President Buhari's request to amend the Electoral Act? And will this affect the existing cordial relationship between the executive and the legislature? We'll find out. Also, the House of Reps is worried about the high cost of aviation fuel. You're watching the Halo Chambers on TVC News. I am Tijesu Adewu. When it was time for lawmakers to consider a bill for the amendment of the 2022 Electoral Act, they voted against it. The bill got its first scare at first reading when Senator Ike Ekweremadu told his colleagues that there is an existing ex parte motion to restrain the President and the Attorney General of the Federation from tampering with the Electoral Act. The senators gave reasons for their decision to throw out the bill at its second reading.
There are certain rules which we don't need to be told about. Yes. And one of those rules is the fact that you cannot be a referee and a player in the same field.
I'm of the opinion, Mr. President, the right thing to do is to allow the appeal to go so that the court order can be set aside.
Mr. President, one of the hallmarks of democracy is justice, fairness, and equity. It's a settled matter in law that you cannot be a judge over your own case.
Members of the National Assembly are at liberty to review the request, see if the arguments by the executive arm of government are convincing enough.
No political party shall seek to disqualify anybody by importing into the process a provision for qualification or disqualification not otherwise provided for in the Constitution.
Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay.
Joining me now on the program is the spokesman of the Senate to tell us why the upper legislative house did not back the president's request to amend the 2022 Electoral Act. It's good to have you on the program, Senator Ajibola Bashiru. Now, the Senate's decision to reject the bill seeking an amendment to the 2022 Electoral Act came as a shock to many people. Now, there are speculations of a rift between the president and the National Assembly. Tell us more.
I think there must be something fundamentally wrong with those people that think that rejection of the bill translates to a rift between the president and the National Assembly. It's amazing that the same set of people that were labeling the Senate and the National Assembly as rubber stamp as the one that are saying the same thing. And it appears to be something fundamentally wrong with some people that the only thing they seem to revel at is when there is a disagreement or a lack of approval between the executive and legislative arm. As far as the National Assembly is concerned, we believe in cooperative mode of legislative engagement between the executive and the legislature. And in this regard, it does not mean that at any point in time, we must agree 100% with what has been sent to us by the president. You will recall that in the past, there have been some nominee of the president that had been rejected by the National Assembly. If that does not signal a rift between the president and the National Assembly, I don't see why an innocuous rejection of a proposed amendment of a bill already passed by the National Assembly will signal a rift. The attitude of the majority of the senators is that if the issue is about constitutionality or otherwise of that provision, Section 6 of the Constitution empowered the courts to determine whether a law made by the National Assembly is in line with the Constitution. And this is in line with Section 1, Subsection 3 of the Constitution that says any law or any act inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution will be declared null and void. So if people feel strongly that the provision is unconstitutional, then they should feel free to approach the court rather than returning it back to the National Assembly. The opinion of the majority of the senators is that it is not within our mandate to amend the law because some legal opinion is of the view that the provision may be unconstitutional. The courts are there for anybody who feels strongly about constitutionality otherwise of a law made by the National Assembly to approach the court. And this they can do by invoking judicial power of the court, which is vested by Section 6 of the Constitution, and also Section 1, Subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which render null and void any act of the National Assembly or action of the executive that is so considered by the court to be unconstitutional. So we don't find anything as spectacular to make us to amend the provision of Section 84, Subsection 10 that had already been passed by the National Assembly and assented to by Mr. President.
But do you think the Senate's decision to turn down the bill was well conceived? Because the argument is that a court order should not stop the legislature from doing its job, as it is interpreted to go against the principles of separation of powers.
I don't understand what you mean by separation of power, and in any way by which the decision of the Senate to exercise its power under Section 4 would usurp the separation of power. In fact, the decision of the Senate is more in line with separation of power, by which the courts will be allowed to make necessary pronouncements as to constitutionality or otherwise of the decision of the Senate and the National Assembly in passing Subsection 10 of Section 84 of the bill and refusing an amendment to it.
Mr. President demanded that certain clauses be amended in the Electoral Act, but the resounding votes of nays against the bill shut it down. Would you say this was a reflection of Nigerians' wish? Recall that lawmakers also had to consult with their constituents before this piece of legislation was put together.
So I need to correct that it's not 84-12, it's 84 subsection 10. So I think the media got it wrong to make reference, by making reference to 84 subsection 12. 84-10, and it's not demand. To use the word demand, I think that's not what the president had done. The president merely requests. There's a difference between requesting for exercise of our legislative powers in favor of a request by the president and the president making a demand on the National Assembly. So I think with respect to the president never made a demand on us. He made a request, and in line with our constitutional mandate, that was considered, the request was turned down by the bill not passing a second reading. As to whether it is in line with the demand or the position of the majority of Nigerians, we are elected as of Nigerians. The only way you can gauge the barometer today of the expression of the will of Nigerians is through the majority of representatives of Nigerians that have been given the mandate by the Nigerian people.
Let's talk a bit about politics. What is going on in your party? Is this an implosion? Because it seems it is difficult for interests to align.
I don't know whether you are a member of our party or whether anybody knows what is going on in our party more than us. The party is on the right track. We are poised to conduct our convention whereby the national leadership of the party will emerge on 26th of March 2022 by the grace of God. And as to the letter, I think today that I saw flying around from INEC stating that there's a need for them to have notice of 21 days before NEC will be held. I will say that it appeared that the INEC is not properly advised. The provision of the Electoral Act that they refer to only made reference to a meeting, congress, or convention where leadership of the party will emerge or candidates will be nominated for the purpose of election. NEC of our party is not such a convention or congress. So I think the Independent Electoral Commission has not been properly advised, and I think the leadership of our party has properly related with them so that they can get proper advice to say that we don't even require for them to be notified of the National Executive Council of our meeting. The notification at the best is an act of courtesy, and therefore we don't require them to witness our NEC, and we don't require 21 days notice by the provision of the Electoral act. And I think INEC leadership will properly advise to stay clear of dabbling into what is not within the province of the Electoral Act or their mandate under the law establishing them.
The leadership of the House of Representatives is seeking an immediate crash in the price of aviation fuel as part of efforts to avert an impending shutdown of the country's airspace due to the scarcity and high cost of Jet A1. The lawmakers met with stakeholders in the aviation sector to hear firsthand what the issues are.
Something we really have to look at, and God forbid, I don't want to come before this committee explaining why A or B happened. So that's, we really thank the leadership of the Right Honourable Deputy Speaker in bringing this issue to the table so that we can find solutions of this astronomical increase. Every day it increases. So I won't be surprised tomorrow if it's selling for 700 naira per liter. It's been every day, it's been 20 naira, 30 naira. Yesterday it was 635. Today it's 670.
We didn't ground our operations because we didn't want the political actors to make a capital out of something that actually we should have done. Our DG has said it succinctly when he said that safety was at stake. 2 days ago, we held a meeting. From 190 naira to a liter, we woke up one morning 2 weeks ago, it became 405, 450, 430. DG said something, with due respect to our DG, yes, the cost of operations, fuel will take 30% of any airline all over the world. But DG, I think, was talking about the other climes. Yes. Here in Nigeria, the cost of aviation fuel is about 70%, even before this increase.
The Director General, and I am asking him to request from you and the required authority the dispensation to control the sale of petroleum products Jet A1 within his premises, within his terrain, before we start finding jerry cans and diluted and contaminated Jet A1 being sold to unsuspecting operators. It's a very sensitive matter. The Director General, and I am asking him to request from you and the required authority the dispensation to control the sale of petroleum products Jet A1 within his premises, within his terrain, before we start finding jerry cans and diluted and contaminated Jet A1 being sold to unsuspecting operators. It's a very sensitive matter.
The House of Representatives observed a minute's silence to honor Oluwabamiche Anyonwola, who was allegedly killed by the driver of a bus rapid transportation in Lagos State. The lawmakers urged the Inspector General of Police and the National Intelligence Agency to find the killers of the 22-year-old Oluwabamiche.
The House is concerned that if serious sensitization on the preventive and elimination of gender-based violence is not embarked on to curb this menace, young girls and women across Nigeria will keep falling victims of sexual assault, rape, and continuous ritual killings. The House further concerned that as Nigerians, we must, and representative of the people, we must realize that this is a fight that demands action from every one of us. Hence, the need to sing with a loud voice that there is no place in our country for those who commit this sort of violence, and this can be achieved by adopting a multifaceted approach that requires increase in advocacy and partnerships between government, the private sectors, and the grassroots. The House assured that the continuous reviews of the existing policies and laws on gender-based violence that accommodate the best practices and strategies will nip this scourge in the bud and reduce future occurrences. The House therefore resolved to urge federal government through the Nigerian Police and National Security and Intelligence to fast-track the investigations and ensure that the killers of Ms. Oluwabamise Ayomola are brought to justice. Second, mandates the House Committee on Police Affairs and National Security and Intelligence to ensure compliance with the first prayer. And thirdly, observe a minute silence in honor of late Ms. Oluwabamise Ayomola and other guests that may have faced the same ritual killings in Nigeria.
Two new members were sworn in on the floor of the House of Representatives after they emerged winner of the by-election held on the 26th of February. Musa Avia, representing Basa, Jos North Federal Constituency, and Mayokun Lawson Alade, representing Akure North, Akure South Federal Constituency.
I do solemnly swear to affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
There is renewed excitement over the decision of the House of Representatives to reconsider 3 gender bills that were earlier thrown out by the lawmakers. The House of Reps may have succumbed to pressure from women groups across the country, criticizing its decision to remove all gender bills from the amended constitution. We spoke to a he for she, the lawmaker representing Obukun Oriade Federal Constituency, Honourable Oke. He also talked about his constituency programs.
I don't think so. Yes, they will continue in Yoruba land. If you ask for a tie, you may not get the tie, but you may get the ham. Okay? So out of 5, if you get 3 or 4, I mean, it's a win-win for you. But the women, they should address themselves to the issue I've raised. That assuming that the 37 additional seats says true, how do you implement saying? In Osun State, I'll be happy if you pick a woman for my constituency. I'll be very happy. So, would you also, what about other? We have 9 federal constituencies in Osun State, meaning that 9 women will be contesting the election. And do you know how many political parties we have? 18 political parties. So does that mean 18 political parties will feature a candidate in the 9 federal constituency? You can look at it. Maybe INEC, others will find a means of implementing it. But it will be so rowdy, to me, it will be unimplementable. But the only way you can achieve that easily is by way of nomination. Professional bodies, women professional organizations, National Council of Women's Society can come together and say, okay, we will nominate women per state. So that is possible. That is easier by way of nomination. And we have that in other democracies. They should think about nomination. But by election, it's not impossible. But like I've told you, you have some women who are stronger than men. Even in we have a lady from Taiwo Oluga, Honourable Taiwo Oluga. She's a woman. She defeated men to come here. In Ibadan, in Oyo State, you have Honourable Tolu Lope. She defeated men to come here. In Ekiti, Barrister Omowumi Ogunlola. She's a woman, a former member of the State Assembly, a lawyer by profession. She defeated men to come here. So sometimes, some of these women are even stronger on their own. They are stronger than men. Or, ma'am, don't you have women who are richer than men in Nigeria? Do you want to compete with Alakija? So you have women that are ordinarily richer than men in society. So, sincerely speaking, I don't see women as if they are weaker gender. I don't see them as such. I give an example. My wife begged me to send her children, her 2 daughters, to the best schools in the world. And I asked her why. She said that's what she wants, because she doesn't want her children to be at any man's they can call. And truly, my daughter, you can. What do you want to impress them with? Because they have knowledge. At their age, they are doing things for themselves. In fact, my daughters tell me that it's just for some time. I wouldn't need your money again. So, women are stronger generally than men. Or don't you have countries in the world that women are presidents of their countries or prime ministers? But because we are developing democracy, developing economy, and then that's why we are looking. You can't go to London now and start telling the UK political system to say no, you should give women affirmation 35%. They're stronger. Don't you, Margaret Thatcher? Are you stronger than her? Haven't you seen women who have become prime ministers in the UK? So, but here we are coming up, we are growing. So, for me, like I've told you, they have done well in my businesses. They are my mothers, they are my sisters, they are my children, they are my aunts. So I'm for them. The most important thing you can do for people is capacity building, empowerment, employment. You can build roads. If you build roads and your constituents don't have the means to buy cars to ply the road, of what use is the road? So human development. There are other ingredients to enhance, to ensure human development. Water supply. I am in support of surface water development rather than boreholes. But because our ministries at the state level and the federal level, they are not getting it right, we begin to sink boreholes. And we cannot run away from it, that we're in the jet age, that people need to drink portable, drinkable water. So I am forced to provide boreholes for any needing community in my constituency. So water is very essential. The next thing is electricity. Electricity, through solar street lights, and then education. I have close to 1,000 children through the collaboration of the state government that I'm training at Government Technical College, Ijeda, Ijesha. These are children that I moped up on the street. I don't want them to become yahoo boys or girls. I mop them, I put them in that school. I pay their school fees and I'm looking after them. Aside that, market women, you also have to support them in their trade. Farmers, artisans, all these boils down to capacity building. I'm looking at primary healthcare centers. If I have health centers, for example, between Oke and Ijesha, I'm trying to put on there. They have an hospital we've been building over 40 years that has not seen the light of the day. I have a clinic in Dagbaja in Ward 8. I have one in Oweno. I have another one I'm doing at Ikeji, Arakeji. So you need to understand the federal constituency vis-a-vis their needs. Okay? So aside health, education, and empowerment, what of our traditional fathers, rulers? They have to stay in the decent palaces, accommodation. Somebody who is working elsewhere, you drag him from Lagos to come and, because of our culture, to come and become a traditional ruler in Iwe Ijesha. Where do you want him to stay? You have to get him a decent accommodation. You brought a king from all the way from London to come and, succeed the seat of his forefathers. We have to support him. So, community halls where people can meet and discuss. You have to cover the core needs assessment. What do your people need? They are suffering from blackout, electricity, lack of power. Unfortunately, IBDC, right? They are concessionaire to provide power. But our people are suffering because they have to buy transformer with their money. And upon buying it, IBDC assume the owners. These are the kind of problems we're having in my constituency. Power supply, water supply, because we're all drinking bottled waters. And of course, security. Now I'm trying to give each community, the police stations, I'm trying to give them vehicles to be able to protect the community. This is the project I'm working on. Vehicles, motorcycles, so that they can wage war against crime. You have to, for you to come to the parliament back to back the way we have, you must be in the heart of the electorate. If you are not in their heart, if you abandon, they will abandon you. You have to be with the people. If you are not with the people, you are just wasting your time. On election day, they will tell you. But if you are with them, and they can say practically that you've been of help, you've supported them, you have delivered, you can go to bed and sleep.
That is all on the program this week. You can watch a repeat broadcast on Sunday, 7 a.m. You can also see this episode again on TVC News YouTube channel. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. I am Tijesu Adeoye. I stand for gender equality, and I stand against gender-based violence. Break the bias.